In today's episode of How Long Until Satch Destroys His Mental Health, I am going to be attempting to get to round 50 only using PhD Slider. PhD has been in Call of Duty since its inception back in 2011 with the release of Ascension in Black Ops 1. PhD at the time was actually called PhD Flopper, and it was by far the most unique perk we had for zombies. The perk brought with it a few attributes. The main focus of PhD, which is still the case today, is that it negates all explosive damage that the player can receive, mainly from self-impacted explosive damage, as we still don't really have that many enemies that deal explosive damage. Well, you know, you get the point. This made weapons like Mustang and Sally and the Scavenger extremely powerful, as you no longer had to worry about blowing yourself up. There is one other attribute this perk comes with: the flopper aspect. Whenever the player dolphin dive from a high enough point to the ground, it would set off an explosion around the player, damaging surrounding zombies. So not only could you now protect yourself from explosions, you could now also kill more enemies with explosions, basically making PhD like Flak Jacket but on steroids. PhD Flopper was made available in all Black Ops 1 maps except Kino de Toten and 5, but then subsequently just disappeared from zombies for the next 2 games. Like, yes, PhD is on Black Ops 2, but it's only available on Origins via the Wonder Fizz. It is also in the Grief game mode on Mob of the Dead, but let's be honest, whoever really played Grief? Huh? The next time we would see PhD in a more permanent manner was Black Ops 4, but it had gone through a pretty major rework. The perk still protected the player from explosions, but dolphin diving had been completely removed from Call of Duty at that point, and had been replaced with sliding, thus birthing PhD Slider. PhD Slider would now set off a chain of explosions whenever the player slid. I mean, it's actually quite self-explanatory, to be honest. Yeah, and then they got rid of it again with Cold War. That was until the very last map for Cold War was released, Forsaken, which brought back PhD. And speaking of Forsaken, funnily enough, that's where this challenge begins. Cold War Zombies doesn't have any form of gobblegums or elixirs or anything like that, which means the first few rounds, your boy's gotta use a gun, alright? Just, it's how it's gonna be. That gun, however, is a 1911, just to try and keep things a bit grounded, even though it's literally one of the best guns in the game. But, you know, it is what it is. Also, there's been a lot of talk over Cold War Zombies being good or bad over the last week or so, and as I'm now playing Cold War, I'm gonna give you my 2 cents. Is Cold War the best overall Zombies experience? No, it isn't. But what it is a great experience in terms of gameplay on 4 very respectable maps that are all at minimum like a 7 out of 10, incredibly accessible to new players, and it comes with a whole bunch of new content such as perk upgrades, etc. Banger of a game, and if I had to rank it, it probably sits in 3rd overall best for me, except for zombies, that is, just for zombies. And with that said, let's get to it, shall we? I stuck around in No Man's Land for the first 9 rounds, which I won't lie, it was a couple more rounds than I was initially going for, but oh well. I now also had a bunch of points, and it was time to make a move through the main facility, and by the end of round 9, I had PhD in my inventory, and now I could just start throwing myself at some zombies. Round 10 was honestly a doddle, grouping all the zombies together and then blowing them up with the slide. It was very satisfying, but then I decided to add a little spice to the mix, and I went and turned on Rampage Inducer. I mean, you just knew I was going to at some point, so let's just get it over with early. Turning this on really didn't make that much of a difference, to be honest. In fact, it just got all the zombies grouped together way quicker, meaning I could kill things quicker. Win-win if you ask me. Things didn't stay so simple though, because that would be too easy, of course. You see, on round 15 an abomination spawned, which would usually be fine, and at first I was fine with it. Easy kill, right? Yeah, that was until I realized that PhD does absolutely dick all in terms of damage to abominations. Like, literally none. So with that, I just kind of decided to leave him alone, you know, just let him chill, chase me around a bit. It was basically like having a really angry, really big and dumb dog just chase me around. It was honestly kind of nice. Round 18 and a mimic spawned, and I thought, oh great, now I'm going to have both an abomination and a mimic chasing me for the rest of the game. But I noticed that the mimic actually took an alright amount of damage from the slide, so I just got to work, slowly chipping away at his health, and finally I managed to kill a boss zombie, and from this point on I thought everything was going to be smooth sailing. I was very wrong. A disciple spawned a few rounds later. I thought to myself, oh well, they're not that difficult to kill. In fact, I'm fairly certain they're one of the weakest like boss special enemies in the game. This should be easy. Yeah, just no. Because of the minuscule amount of damage I was doing to the Disciple in the first place, I knew this might take some time. What I completely forgot was the Disciple siphons health from zombies, and if there isn't any zombies left, it just siphons health from you. And because this game hates me, they also start doing this immediately after losing any health, therefore making it nigh on impossible to kill the douchebag with just PhD. So I quit this game and admitted a partial defeat. I wasn't done just yet, and it was time to head back to Old Faithful, to Die Maschine. Die Maschine is the only map in the game that isn't littered with a bunch of boss zombies. I mean, Firebase C also doesn't have that many, but those lockdowns with PhD, yeah, no thanks. The early game in Die Maschine pretty much went the exact way Forsaken did. Started with the 1911 and just grinded out a bunch of points. Round 8 with about 20k in my pocket, it was time to make my way through the map and buy PhD. With PhD bought, things got back on track. That wasn't until the Megaton spawned. Now I won't lie, I was a little naive going into this, and I thought that maybe PhD could be good here. As the Megaton is a bit of a pushover, no, I'm just so wrong. The man is built like a brick shithouse when it comes to dealing damage with PhD, and once again I am stuck with another large, angry boss that will annihilate me if I get too close. So I kinda maybe allowed myself to use the 1911 just to kill the bosses, as there is no way you can do it with PhD. Dealing 290 damage to an enemy that can have several 100,000 health points, yeah, that's a big old nope from me. Now that I was finally able to confidently make my way through these rounds, I began to realize just how not great PhD Slider is in Cold War. Now don't get me wrong, infinite damage is huge. Insane, some might say, but there are some massive problems with it. The main one being the level of inconsistency this perk has. Every time you slide towards a zombie, you have no idea if the perk will activate or not. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, which then just leaves you with a face of zombie balls. I don't know why PhD Slider is this way. Like, I honestly don't know if there's a specific way to even get it to activate every time. I honestly don't know. I'll have the perk activate at the very last millimeter of a slide and the very first, so distance travel doesn't seem to be what activates it. And that's kind of the only parameter that it can be, right? Unless it's speed, but I don't get how that would work, considering almost every slide is at the exact same speed from start to finish. My only one guess is that there's a set number of times the perk can activate within a period of time, but then surely there would be something telling you when it's available to use or not. Like, you see what I mean about this perk? It's a goddamn headache. So now that I discovered I was basically just using a hidden death trap to kill zombies for a game, I kept on going, as you do. Round 22, I opted for the Howler as my boss killing gun. The main reason for this was the Megaton just moves in such a chaotic way that if I'm trying to shoot them with like a 1911 that is very powerful, there's a pretty high chance I'm gonna miss and just end up killing a bunch of zombies with the pistol. So the shotgun seemed like a good idea. Much harder to miss, plus it does way more damage, meaning they're super easy to kill. We were now closing in on round 30, and I gotta say, I was surprised at how easy it is to blitz through these rounds with just PhD. You know, granted it works every time, that is. But when it gets going, it gets going. But on round 30, PhD decides that now is the perfect time for it to work a bunch on the smaller crowds, and then as I go into the large crowd, it of course just says nah, and I get trapped and downed. And yes, I did shoot then. I think I killed a singular zombie, but that was just out of pure panic and instinct. But that's not where the fun ends. The game thought it would be a great idea to take PhD from me, meaning I had to go and buy it back pretty much straight away. I head up to the Wonder Fizz, buy my perk, and as I'm about to go back to killing zombies, or at least I would have, but lo and behold, the perk just doesn't work once again, and I take a second down. As I'm basically all but dead now, I just quit the game. I knew I could do better, so I ran it back once more. This time I spawned with the shotgun just to make life easier, and before long I was back at round 30. Yet again, however, this perk just seemed to be so hit and miss. As on round 36, I slide into a bunch of zombies and nothing, like just straight up nada. As I'd come to expect, but of course I wasn't gonna learn. This time after going down, I thankfully kept a hold of PhD so I could at least clear out some of the round before attempting to rebuy all of my perks. That was until I pressed control instead of shift and then slid right into a crowd of zombies from like a foot away, proccing the smallest possible PhD blast and therefore getting me killed once again. We didn't quite make it to round 50, my brain hurts, and quite frankly, I'm fairly certain my operator's knees hurt after this. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, sub if you haven't already, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.